First of all, let me thank everyone in the audience from coming in from the last bit of sunshine we have before the rain tomorrow, and the coffee and the conversation for joining us here. And I want to thank each of my panelists, each of our panelists, particularly Pascal, who just came over to talk to Carlos about 2 minutes ago, because I guess who was our third panelist wasn't here, and Carlos said, why don't you come up on stage? And he just showed up here, so this is come. Yeah, Pascal?
That's my avatar.
Yeah.
Before the blow up.
So what we'll try to do is we'll try to make this an exciting panel, as high energy as possible. We're going to get into a little bit of introductions, and then we're going to ask each one of the panelists to talk about a practical example of how we apply GenAI, AI, in scientific data dissemination. We're broadening that towards communication. What do they do? What did they learn from it? What can you take back to your own offices for application back at home? Before we jump into this, I want to reflect a little bit on some of the messages from the morning conversations, morning panels, morning presentations. So they're all really interesting. Two big things I took away is we have to always make sure we're being human-centered as possible. Whether it's talking about it, whether it's collaborating, whether it's communicating, make sure that we are human-centered in this. And second, that communication is key. Communication, again, whether we're communicating with our customers or we're communicating internally. I'm going to get to the panelists and their introductions. Let me just do a brief introduction of me. I'm not going to do the typical LinkedIn bio introduction. I'll just say I do head Axtria's European business unit. I don't sound like it, but I live in London. But I want to share in that spirit of more human connections, a more personal story about me and AI. And so what I want to say is that actually AI got me here. And I don't mean that like I use ChatGPT to get here, but AI is part of kind of how I got to this industry. So I'll go back even further. My mother's mother died of breast cancer when my mom was 14. I never met her, obviously. My mom was a young parent, but not that young. And I feel really sad that I never got to meet her, because by all accounts, she was an impressive woman. So she was a single parent in the early post-war years in the 1940s, forced into entrepreneurship as a single parent. And by all accounts, she was an incredible woman, cut down too short because of breast cancer. And because her breast cancer was not diagnosed until it was too late. Fast forward to 1992, I'm in grad school, I'm studying applied math. I don't really know how I'm going to apply the math, I just know that I like math. One of my early professors there, his foundational research was on essentially building the theoretical underpinnings of the algorithms that someone mentioned this morning that are now used to diagnose breast cancer. He's the one who got me excited about how I could apply math to a real-world problem. And he got me into, he didn't get me the job, but he essentially drove me into taking my mathematical skills and putting those to application in the pharmaceutical industry. So I've been doing this for 30 years, admittedly, not on the cool, sexy stuff like drug discovery or diagnosis, commercial excellence and operations, but I've never been more excited about what we can do with data, analytics, and technology. And I hope my excitement comes through. I hope you hear the panelists' excitement as well, because I think it's a really exciting time for the industry. So let me do this. Let me just first, I want each of you to do an introduction, and then we'll dive into the examples that you have. So we'll start with you, Maja.
Okay, I'm Maja Galic, and I lead Global Medical Affairs Operations and Excellence at Teva, which is a whole bunch of stuff, including study operations, systems, processes, and indeed funky cool stuff like digital, AI, etc. I'm a Croatian native, actually, and grew up in Australia and been in the industry for about 20 years, so I started when I was 5.
Good afternoon, Pascal Gucht of UCB, Belgian-based company, also Belgian from together with our medical communities, driving with my team the digitalization, analytics, and AI solutions across medical affairs.
Cool. Carlos. Excellent. All right, so what I'm going to try to do is we'll spend about the next 10 minutes me asking them questions, but then we'll open up the floor about 5 minutes ago. So please think of those questions so we're not just sitting here and you leave us hanging when I say open the mic for questions. So Maja, what I'm going to ask each of the panelists to do is then, again, go into a real-world example of how they're using AI, GenAI in this area of communication or just data dissemination, and talk about what you've learned through that process. We'll go with you first.
Very good. And I know we have a tendency to talk a lot about how we disseminate data outwards. We talk about omni-channel and all that good stuff that Carlos loves to talk about. He's really passionate about it. But I think sometimes it's remiss of us to ignore the role, the very important role that generative AI plays internally. Because we're never going to be successful in terms of implementing generative AI and other digital solutions unless we are experts ourselves in the data, in the science, omni-channel, whatever you want to call it. It always starts with that person-to-person interaction. You need to build that relationship with your customer. It's medical affairs with the first boots on the ground, building that relationship. And how do they do it? It's through discussing the scientific data. What else are you going to talk about? So it's really important to build that rapport in order to then understand the customer and how they prefer to receive information in the future via what channel, etc. So one very concrete example from what we have done at Teva recently is we have developed a GenAI model internally and trained it on all the data from one of our products that's been around for quite a long time. So you can imagine if you're an MSL coming on board, this product is going to get launched in Europe. That's a lot of data that you have to now memorize and become very confident with. So by developing this model, it's really enabled us to upskill those people really, really quickly and educate them on years worth of publications, hundreds of posters and all that good stuff. Not only that, it enables them to respond more nimbly and more quickly to inquiries that they get from their customers, from their KOLs. Because we've developed what we call a very creatively Teva GPT. So they're able to literally talk to the data, go for a walk with the data, have coffee with it, ask it questions, and very quickly respond to what the customer is asking. So that's just one example of how we're upskilling internally in order to then be better externally.
Excellent. And any kind of key lessons you learned in terms of how you made that happen?
Yeah, well, we couldn't do it on our own because there were a bunch of scientists. Yeah. So don't know how to do that. We built it in-house actually. Okay. The vendors are not going to love this, but it was, we found it fiscally not really doable to in-house a large language model and pay for it every year. So we built one ourselves, okay. And it was also much easier to get across the line with corporate IT security. If you're building something in-house, ended up being a lot more cost-effective. All we had to pay for was a couple of developers.
Okay.
So we built it in-house and we continue to train the model. As we get new data, we just feed it to the model and yeah.
Excellent.
It's going well, but yeah, you still need that adoption. People need to change their mindset and adapt to that way of working instead of seeing it as something like additional or extra that they need to do, but actually it's there to help you out.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's just, really embracing that and embracing it early on.
I want to come back to that adoption story later, but Carlos, let's talk about your experience, your practical experience from in-house.
Sure. So the example I'm going to give is related to insights. So we all know that our MSLs are out there in the field. They put notes, hopefully, into the CRM, and then the traditional way was to always extract those notes from the CRM, put them in an Excel sheet, send them to a medical writer, spends 2 weeks summarizing, and then they come and share them with us. So a really long time ago, even before GenAI was discovered, we were working with AI, simple AI, NLP. Yeah. And what we did was a combination of human and NLP, where we took all these notes, put them in that whatever machine, and then we started getting trends, topics, things that are being discussed. Now the question is, okay, how did that lead to an impact? Because that's the most important thing. Why would I do that? I'll give you an example. I cannot go into details. I'm not going to read my disclaimer again. But the same disclaimer I read in the morning applies. So we discovered that there is a new topic that was trending in the notes of MSLs.
Okay.
And then the next quarter, that topic was growing larger. It's being discussed more and more. We created content and disseminated that content with the MSLs to address that specific topic. And then after the content was disseminated with the MSLs and through the other different channels, we observed if the topic was being discussed more and more, or if it was being, shrinking.
Right.
And eventually it started shrinking. So it started as maybe, let's say, a concern.
Yeah.
I cannot be specific. But then that concern started shrinking. And it showed that, okay, so we caught it early, we created something to do an action, and then we were able to see it resolved. And another quick example also, because sometimes when you're looking at notes, you might think that this is not relevant, right? Like we're used to the same feedback we get from MSLs, you would see something new, and you would say, that's just one MSL saying that.
Right.
The other thing it was helping us do is that we discovered a certain mention of an indication on a drug being mentioned in one country, and then we saw it mentioned in another country, and then a case that the doctor wanted to share in a third country. And because of NLP and because of AI, we saw that trend. And then when we looked further into it with advisory boards, with clinical trials, it led to a significant impact.
Right.
So that's another way. And I will end by saying, okay, where does GenAI come in? GenAI, what we're looking for now is how can we not just get the trends and the topics and what is hot on the market, but how can we also ask questions like, do we see any concerns on this, or do we see any topic on that, or what is the trend now? And then it replies back to you with a text referencing which countries, which specific MSLs, so that you can follow up on that. And this is where GenAI is going to be mainly the hero, right, in terms of that. So that's my example on insights.
Excellent. So through the NLP, which is I guess earlier stage AI, I mean, you are at a macro level able to generate those insights, change content, change
Strategy,
training,
content,
change strategy
generation, anything.
Right.
The most important thing is that you action it. If you just spend money for shiny dashboards and then there's nobody behind those dashboards looking at the output, training the MSLs, because it's fine, you got used to my words. If you focus on shit in, you will get shit out, right? So you need to focus on the quality. So if there's no good quality of input coming from MSLs, you will not have AI generate good quality for you, right? So we have to work on the capabilities, you have to work on the people who are following up and providing back the feedback, or else AI cannot do all the job for you. You still need a human there.
Yes. Yeah, that human-centered AI comes again. So Pascal, I know we're putting you on the spot. You've got 5 minutes to think about this. How about a practical example from your work?
So our most advanced GenAI solution resides in the area of MedInfo. Just to put a bit the context to the audience, MedInfo department is responsible to answer to questions coming from HCP's patients. Can I use this treatment with this comorbidity, or can I use this in combination with another product? So what is the classical ways of working? There needs to be a response level being created to answer those questions. So traditionally, we outsource those services. There is a question coming in. Internal people are screening the question, or putting the label, some references to publications, and then that what we call the data package is going to the vendor. He creates the document, comes back, somebody internally reviews it, and then can be given as an answer. What we try to do with the GenAI is that the data package is already being created by the GenAI model. There is, based on that model, already being a draft being created, goes to the vendor, fine-tunes it, and comes back. So what are the benefits? Cost reduction, but also the speed to answer those questions. What are the challenges that we saw? It's first a little bit, how do we make a product that is fully embedded in the workflow of those operators? It's not a shiny digital product and then on top of everything. Secondly, where I think the whole industry is a bit struggling, is the publishers. And we use references of publications. Seems to be that there are also an attention point around copyrights that needs to be clarified. And then thirdly is also the discussion that we had in the beginning. Do we position this tool as an internal tool for our people? But that means that we need to increase again the capacity of people that are working. And then, or do we give it to the vendor and we hope that we can generate some cost savings by creation of those tools.
Right. And where did you end it up as an internal tool that you're?
It will be given to the vendor, so
Okay.
we are making that partnership announced end of this month.
Perfect. All right, I'm behind my time of 5 minutes for questions. Let me just do one key lesson that each of you have learned that you'd like to impart to the panel, to the audience. So, Carlos. Okay, we'll go with that.
Wait, what were my notes again?
Oh, let's give her. Okay, I'm sorry. So I would say 3 key messages as a takeaway. One is invest in your people. Make sure you are building the capabilities and not creating another department for AI, another department for omni-channel, another department for digital. So invest in your people and make sure they have the right capabilities in order to move these technologies forward. And second, I would say, whatever you want to create or use or implement, make sure that you partner with the people who you need to partner with the most.
Yeah.
Legal, compliance, regulatory, whoever it is. Partner with them IT from the start and don't come to them with a baked solution and expect them to directly approve it. Take them along the journey. This will make it much easier to implement. So these are maybe 2 things I would say. And the third thing is just don't be scared to invest and to try and implement. If you're going to wait for the hype to go away, it's not like omni-channel hype. AI is here to stay. So I don't think AI is a hype as much as the other buzzwords.
Perfect. Maja.
Yeah, from my side, it was kind of what I said before, like it should just be embedded as a way of working and not something additional. Otherwise, your omni-channel could become quite omni-shit.
And Pascal, any key lesson?
I would say invest also in an AI profile that is sitting on the business side. That can really the translator, but also can challenge a little bit the digital things because, like we said, it needs to be embedded in the workflow. End users need to use it, and if they provide feedback, that it can be translated in a way that technical teams are understanding it.
And it shouldn't be seen as something scary, like Carlos was saying earlier, like it's somehow going to replace your job. No, it's going to make you so much better at your job. Like if you just embrace it, you'll just be able to learn faster, execute more quickly, have knowledge at your fingertips more readily. So if you just kind of shift the mindset towards that kind of positive outlook, it's here to stay.
Perfect. Good, thank you very much for the question.
Of course it's here.
Hi, Maja. So, the question is, I have not heard anybody talk about AI helping us to break 2 language barriers that are very typical to medical affairs, both on the input and the output. The first one is the real the language. It used to be impossible for a Hungarian MSL who was not very fluent in English to put their notes in. You said if they do. One of the reasons was they were afraid to write bad English. They may be very good in their science, they may have an MD, PhD, but they write shit English. Can we fix the language barrier? And then on the output, same thing. Can you make medical letters more readable? Which the second language barrier is from scientific language to normal speaking, right? And so none of you have mentioned that. I'm wondering where AI could help us, because I really think that's one of the biggest untapped ways. If you want more insights from your MSL, make sure that you pick up everything and take away language. If you want more impact, make sure you eliminate it.
And we already have that. We have translation capabilities where folks are able to,
Yes.
yeah, like that already sort of exists. Yeah.
We did a
I
pilot.
don't know about that, mate.
We did a pilot in Japanese, so they were writing Japanese insights and they were being translated and then summarized and back to English to us and back in Japanese to them in terms of themes and topics. It's not that easy because, sometimes the translation misses some of the keywords or the key slang or anything, but it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
What I see though is in most up-to-date systems that they bring both the natural language and then the English translation, that everybody wants the same language.
I think we're out of time. Thank you very much. Thanks for the question. Thanks again for everyone.